Okay, let's grab our seats. It's officially 8:30 p.m. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Ron.
Welcome home, everybody. Make yourself at home here. Let's grab some seats really quick. There is a very important announcement. I guess you would call it important. September 21st, the September to Remember workshop. It'll be 12 different speakers, 12 steps going through in a day. Immediate PA. The flyer will be posted on our Facebook page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Those type of workshops tend to be life-changing. You sit there and you get like this, concentrated dose of recovery from multiple people. I'd highly advise it if you really wanted to, have a new experience with your sobriety. Anyway, with that, we have the world's greatest chairperson. He came all the way in from Australia. Let's give a good day, mate. Welcome to Nick.
My name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic from down under. Okay, welcome home, everybody. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Nick, and I am an alcoholic, and I'm not from Australia. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m., followed by our speaker at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30, right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from the message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that will introduce themselves with their first name? Yes, sir.
Josh.
Welcome, Josh. 1, 2, 3. Hi, Renee. Welcome. Hi, welcome both of you. Okay, and welcome to everyone. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Excellent. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? All right. Our sister group is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 just up the street at the Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street, and that is in Doylestown. Coffee is on at 6:15. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD Donations, and all CDs are available free of charge. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, PA, and our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. You can find our speakers there, join our Facebook page to keep informed, and share upcoming events and meetings. And now with that, please give a warm welcome to Paul. He's going to come up and read our Just for Today Prayer of Recovery.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul. I'm an alcoholic. Hey, Paul. Welcome home. Just for today, prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody but myself. And if you'll help me give Will a warm welcome for the preamble.
Hi, I'm Will, an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Now please give a warm welcome to Tasha to read the 12 Steps of Recovery.
Hello, my name is Tasha. I'm an alcoholic. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge and for His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Now, Nick is going to come back up. Thank you.
Okay, the 7th tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supported and declining outside contributions. At this time, we'd like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we do have expenses, and this group provides many services. Your donations cover food, rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and try to limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And if you'd like to make a donation, we do have a Venmo. Come see me after the meeting for the Venmo QR code. And now, to introduce our speaker, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, let's give a warm welcome to Action Mike from the Sobriety at 7 group.
Hi, I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic named Action Mike. First off, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. I always have to admit that I'm nervous. It's an honest program. You know, it's not so much speaking in front of a group that makes me nervous. What makes me nervous is carrying the message. Doing a good job of carrying the message that saved my life. It gave me a new life. It gave me everything that it promised. You know, if I continue to work it one day at a time. Let me qualify myself. You know, usually people ask you how long you've been sober. If you ask me how long I've been sober, my answer will always be all day so far. Because it's truly a one day at a time program. But for qualification purposes, my sobriety date is March 17th of 2011. My home group is the King of Prussia Sobriety at 7 group. Meets 7 days a week at 7 a.m. and Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. If you're ever in the area, we'd love to have you. It's a literature-based meeting. I have a sponsor. His name's Shaky Mike. He knows he's my sponsor because he still hears from me on a regular basis, because I'm still powerless and I still need to speak with people, and he's the one that knows me the best. He has a sponsor that he still works with, and I've had the privilege of meeting. His name's Mitchell K. And there's a reason I tell you this, because it has a lot to do with my recovery and how I got here today. Mike and Mitchell are both like AA archivists, AA historians, really into the history. And my sponsor, Mitchell, his sponsor was a gentleman named Clarence Snyder. Now, Clarence Snyder started the 3rd AA group in Cleveland in 1938. And for anybody who knows Clarence, they know that his sponsor was Dr. Bob. And it was the program that was passed on from Dr. Bob to Clarence to Mitchell to Shaky Mike to me that saved my life. Not some new age program, not some program designed for the 21st century. the program that's laid out in the big book that showed me precisely how these men recovered. They, as a matter of fact, call it clear-cut directions. I was born at an early age in Buffalo, New York. I have an older sister, 3 years my senior. My father's side of the family is devout Roman Catholic. My mother was Episcopalian. But we lived in Buffalo under the thumb of my grandmother on my dad's side, my dad's mother. And he had 8 brothers and sisters. And growing up, it was a tight family. We were together all the time. They all lived in Buffalo, and we all go to Grandma's house on Sundays to watch the Buffalo Bills and O.J. Simpson. Yeah, I'm that old. And we would crowd into this little tiny room, maybe 15 by 15, and there'd be 25 of us, and everybody was drinking. And that's how it was with my family. Anytime there was a family gathering, a christening, a birthday, a Sunday football, Sunday for pizza and wings, whatever it was, there was always alcohol around. Now I can say at the same time, I never saw any of my relatives drunk, or my father. But there was always booze around. So I was sipping off of alcohol at a young age, sipping beers, and you can imagine if there's, 30 people in the room and I'm going up and sipping off of this one and sipping off of that one. I can't say I was that guy that the first time I took a sip of alcohol, I was like, wow, this is great. But I can also tell you that I wasn't like, ew, this is horrible. So alcohol was something that was just always around in life, and it was something that the adults did. And me being the type of person I always wanted to do what the adults were doing. So that was my exposure to alcohol. Now that I had my first drink, I give you some background on me. As a young child, I was found that I was highly intelligent. I was really smart. Like when I went to kindergarten, they wanted to advance me a couple of grades. And I changed schools every single year of my entire life, pretty much. And I moved every single year of my entire life, pretty much. So I was always the new guy. I never had the feeling that I didn't fit in. I was just always the new guy. And my mother would always tell me I always made friends. We'd move into a new neighborhood. First day I'd be making friends. By the end of the week, everybody'd be over at our house in the morning knocking on the door going, hey, where's Mike? What are we doing today? She said, like you just had these natural leadership qualities is what she used to tell me. But the family started falling apart. We moved from Buffalo to Horseheads, New York, out in the middle of the boonies. Life didn't change much, but when we moved from there down to Philadelphia, we moved down to East Norton. And my father had a wandering eye, I'll say, to be polite, and it started, and obviously it started causing problems in the family. I was a bad kid. I had problems, way before drinking. Like they said, I had to go look back at my history, not my drinking history, my life history. See, like in first grade when we lived in Horseheads, New York, when I got to that school, like within the first week, some kid really ticked me off. So after school, I clotheslined him off his bicycle and then stomped on him and stomped on his arm until I broke it in 3 places in a fit of rage. And at that point, what I would tell you, a blackout. And I had real rage issues. And by second grade, I was smoking cigarettes, stealing those Moore cigarettes that were like 2 feet long, if you ever remember them. Nobody ever smoked a whole one. My mom smoked them and she'd put them out halfway. We'd go inside and grab the cigarettes, light them off a candle in the back porch. That's the second grade. I was at Paul Fly Elementary. So I was just a bad kid, always wanted to do what the adults did. And I didn't have my first drink till we moved to Mill Grove, and the family really had fallen apart at this point. Now I got to tell you, I was 8 years old, and you kind of start developing your own personality then. You become your own person. So I don't know if it's because I was developing my own person or because I was rebelling because the family was falling apart. The truth is, it doesn't really matter. I could tell you all about the character defects that are behind all of that. So we went out with my sister. When the family was falling apart, I started latching on to my sister. She was 3 years older than me. So I was 8, she was 11. She hung out with older people. And one day we found ourselves out in the Audubon Bird Sanctuary. And somebody had liquor, not beer, the hard stuff, which I had never had. And that day I took my first drink of hard liquor, and I got drunk. And I remember going home, and I don't remember much, but I remember going home and laying on the couch watching TV, and the room was spinning. and I put my leg on the floor, and I did not like it. That was a weird feeling. But you know, that's what all the adults are doing all the time, so in a way I kind of liked it, you know. But I wasn't good at drinking. You know, I was never good at drinking. I didn't get drunk again until probably, I guess that was what, 4th grade, 3rd grade. I remember getting drunk. I was smoking cigarettes at that point. I started buying cigarettes out of the Penny Lounge and Audubon, sneaking in and buying them out of the cigarette machine in the bar lobby. Was getting in a lot of fights. But I didn't get drunk again until like 6th grade. You know, my dad, the family had fallen apart. My dad was remarried. I had the wicked stepmother. You know, they had bought a house. We're living in Springfield, Delaware County now. And I came home drunk one day, drank an 8-pack of Miller Ponies. And I got home, and I remember walking in the house, and my dad and stepmother were on the couch, and I walked right by them and walked upstairs. They had no idea. They had no clue. My dad just never had a clue, to be honest with you. Got away with murder. And I went upstairs, and I went and laid down on the bottom bunk of my bunk bed, because, you know, that's how old I was. I was still sleeping in a bunk bed. And the next thing you know it, I have a headache. I mean, I quit drinking like 3 hours earlier, and I already have a headache. And then the worst thing happens. I start feeling sick. So I run down the hallway, go into the bathroom, and pray to the porcelain god and puke my guts up. And that was in 6th grade. And I can tell you, that was pretty much my drinking through all of high school. You know, I drank on weekends, you know, as a weekend warrior. You know, I didn't drink all the time, you know, it was something we did for fun. We went to desert parties. I ended up moving out to Arizona when I was in 8th grade, my mother and I. And my mom would buy beer. She would buy beer for us and let me and my sister drink beer. She used to buy a case of Genesee Cream Ale once a month or once every couple of months, put it in the house. We were allowed to drink 1. If we had 2, we weren't allowed to leave the house for 24 hours because, you know, we couldn't have the parents in the neighborhood finding out. Of course, today she'd go to jail for something like that. So I wasn't good at drinking, and, you know, I just mentioned in passing, you know, it was hard to get alcohol too, and I wasn't really good at it, but some of the other stuff was really easy to get, and that's what I tended to. So I never thought of alcohol as a problem for me, you know, but every Friday night, you know, my house was the party house. Everybody would show up, and 2 friends of mine, John and Lee, would show up with a 5th of Jack Daniels each. And they'd come, I could see them walking down the sidewalk. We're getting ready to go in my house, and we're going to tear one up for the Friday night. You know, we're freshmen, sophomores in high school. And I grabbed the 5th from John, and I chug it down, and I drink like maybe a quarter of it, and then I grab it from Lee, and I chug it from his, and I drink about a quarter of it. And then later on in the night, I have no idea why I'm puking my guts up. Oh, and falling down a lot, and making a complete idiot out of myself, which I hated. I hated losing control. I always wanted to drink, but I didn't ever want to lose that control. You know, so I just never really considered it. But the thing is, I look back at it now, I went back and did the same thing every weekend. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I'm a thin guy. So I just thought that, you know, my friends were bigger, they could drink. You know, they could drink more than me. But I look back and like Lee and John that was Friday night, I drank a quarter of each of their bottles. They show up Saturday night for round 2, they each have a half a bottle left. I look back now, and it wasn't that I was thin, it was that I didn't drink like them. Way back then. But I kept at it, and by the time I was a senior in high school, I had mastered alcohol. It was great. I could drink anything I wanted, anytime I wanted, in any volume I wanted. And I no longer threw up, I no longer fell down, I didn't slur my words. As a matter of fact, you probably wouldn't even know I was drinking. I would say full-blown alcoholic at that point. But the alcoholic of the early variety, the high bottom, you know, I still believe at that point in time in my recovery that in my life that I probably could have stopped on my own. But that quickly changed. I went to college and my drinking went pro, as you hear people say all the time, because that's when I started drinking every day. I had a job, I worked 5 hours a day, 25 hours a week, and then I went to class afterwards. Well, I went to class until I decided to drop out. And I didn't go to class my second year, really. That's why they threatened to kick me out. I showed them I dropped out. And I started drinking. I'd leave work at 10 in the morning, and we'd go sit on my lawn. I went to Arizona State University, lived off campus. So me and my buddies, after work at 10 o'clock, we'd go get a bunch of beer, we'd fill up the cooler, and we'd sit right on the front lawn of my house with a cooler and our lawn chairs and flirt with all the girls who were walking by going to campus, trying to get them to cut class and hang out and party with us. I grew a beard because all my friends, I actually didn't hang out with a lot of college people. I hung out with the people I worked with. They were all in their late 20s, early 30s. They were going to all the bars and the clubs. I was 18, I grew a beard. Never got carded after that. Never had a problem getting alcohol after that day, after that point when I grew a beard. And I have to say, after that, I pretty much never went a day without alcohol. Ever. It had become part of my life. It had become a fixture, but it was a social thing. You know, it's what you do in college. You drink, you go to parties, you know, it's just what you do. So I didn't really see it as a problem. But I knew it was a problem at the same time. I have to be honest that, you know, because you wake up, you have a blackout, you don't remember where you were. You know, that's a problem. You know, I knew that, but, you know, I'd get it under control. I wouldn't drink as much, because again, it was always about, you know, drinking right up to that line. I didn't like blacking out. I know some people drank the blackout. We are alcoholics of all different varieties. You know, we all have these different paths. These different paths that we got here by. But once we get here, we have a common solution upon all which we can all agree upon. And they tell us that in the first line of how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path. So everything they talk about is specifically about what they did. It's not this rainbow and roses that, oh, we all have our own path. I mean, there's other recovery programs. AA has no corner on God, has no corner on sobriety. There is no wrong way to get sober, but this is AA. So I carry the AA message, you know. But anyway, so full-blown alcoholic. By the time I'm 20, I drop out of college. I end up getting my first job running a company. I was in sales. I was really good at sales. I'd studied. When I quit college, I actually devoted 3 hours every day to study sales because it was going to be my career at that point. So I got my first job and I moved back from Arizona out to Hatboro. I was working on right on Turnpike Drive, right off the Turnpike there at I think it's Davisville Road. And going to work now, I have a different kind of job. I go to work every day in a suit and tie. I have people that I'm responsible for, and I'm responsible for building this company. It's great, man, because you know what they do after work? They go out after work and they go to happy hour. You know, and I was doing this different kind of drinking. There was nightclub drinking, and there was standing around the keg in the middle of the desert out of a solo cup drinking. You know, but now I was doing like, you know, what the adults were doing. I'd kind of grown up now. I'm going to the bar after work. And I'm ordering my drinks. And the way I drank was a beer, a shot, and a mixed drink. And that's how I drank for years. And as one of them is empty, fill up another one. Go through 10, 15 rounds of that easily in a night. And I was always a bar drinker. You know, I wasn't gonna sit at home and drink alone. You know who does that? Alcoholics. They do that. They drink alone. I'm not an alcoholic. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. Alcoholics can't drink anymore. I like drinking. I don't want to be that. So I didn't do that, and I didn't drink in the morning either. Because, you know, alcoholics, they drink in the morning. So I get this job, and now when I go to happy hour, it's at 5:30. My friends leave, my coworkers leave at 7:30. Me, I stay till 2:30. And then I leave the bar and I go to the after hours club. Some days I go home and change, some days I go straight to the office. I'm 20 years old and I'm drinking, I mean, like I said, I go 10, 15 rounds of those every single night. And then there's other various shots I'm doing. I mean, I'm drinking these huge amounts of alcohol. My friends are like, how can you put down all this alcohol? I'm like, oh, I'm fine, it's great. And it is like a badge of honor. A couple of my buddies played for the Bucks County Redskins. You know, center and a linebacker, they were huge, man. I'd drink them under the table all the time. I was really proud of it. You know, and they were amazed. It was horrible. It was horrible. Well, what happened right around that time, I was dating this woman, and she was a dancer, ballet, not pole. And she was beautiful, and she was great. We were really getting along, but she didn't like me drinking, and she didn't like me smoking. So, you know, I quit smoking. And I started hiding my drinking. We got in this big fight about her and her ex-boyfriend. She was going to some concert. We got in a huge fight, and it was the night she was going to the concert. Of course, what did I do? I went out and drank at her. Went to get good and drunk while I'm sitting over at the bar. the phone rings and it's a call for Mike. Because see, you young people won't know this, but back in the day, when you knew an alcoholic like me, if you wanted to find him, you had to call all the bars he drank at, because there was no cell phones. You know, and if you didn't pay the bartender 10 or 20 bucks to say he wasn't there, you could find him. So she knew where I was. She called the bar. I said, yeah, I'll come over, because, you know, I'll sober up real quick, walk across. She lived right across the street from the bar. So I walk across County Line Road. This is just a farm shopping center, if any of you guys are familiar with that. And I walk across, she breaks up with me. I walk across, we get there. She knows I'm drunk. She dumps me. We get into a fight. I'm walking down the driveway. And this overwhelming shame comes to me, like I'm doing that walk of shame. And I think to myself, I'm 20 years old, and I think to myself, like, when was the last time you went a day, you know, without drinking? And I probably thought of it in different words back then, but that was it. And I'm sitting there going, I can't remember. I'm 20 and I can't remember. You know, and I'm like, wow, County Line Road's a pretty busy road, and I'd been drinking, you know, so I had to stop and pay attention so I didn't get run over by a car. So by the time I got to the other side of the street, the thought was gone. It was completely gone. I went in the bar and I drank. You know, a couple days later, I got really drunk, and I was coming down Davisville Road over the Turnpike Bridge, and one of the bridges jumped out in front of me, smashed up the front of my Mustang, gave me a flat tire. Nowhere to pull over. I pulled over at the Jiffy Lube on the corner of York and Davisville. Went in my trunk to get, you know, flat tire, gotta fix it. Went in my trunk, couldn't find the jack. It's Willow Grove. I lived in Lansdale. I'm like, just down the hill on the turnpike to 309, 309 to 5 Points, and then once I'm at 5 Points, it's like a mile into Lansdale, Brookside Apartments. I can do this. So I get on the turnpike with a flat tire. I get on the on-ramp. As soon as I get on the on-ramp, woo, 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 I get pulled over by a statey. We get out, I'm like, yeah, he pulls me over. You know what we do? He's like, you know you have a flat tire. I'm like, oh yeah, officer, I knew something felt weird. Oh, thank you, yeah, okay. And we get out and I act like there's nothing going on. And I walk over there, now I'm drunk as get out. So I'm like, there's a cop standing here. You could just imagine, some of you have been there. And I'm standing there staring at the tire, and I don't have the jack. I don't know what to do. So I go to the trunk, let me get the jack. And I go to the trunk, I mess around, and I go, I can't find the jack. I go back and I'm staring at the tire, and he goes to the trunk. And he literally walks up to the trunk and he goes, oh, you mean this jack? He pulled it right out. I'm like, yeah. So now I'm like, okay, change it. As I go to squat down to change the tire, I fall backwards 3 times. I can't even squat down. State trooper says, would you like me to call you a service truck? I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. The next thing I remember is the guy in the service truck lowering the front of my car with my spare on it. And he's going, okay, you're good to go. I have no idea how you did not get a ticket. And I'm like, me neither, thanks a lot. And I was on my way. Now, if you knew me in my life, you would hear me whining and complaining all the time about how I never got a break in life. I never got a break. I got millions of breaks like that. You know, a week after that bridge jumped out in front of me, I'm leaving work at 5 o'clock. And I guess I didn't go to the after hours club or something, but I'm on Davisville Road waiting to go to the General Davis Inn, and there's a line of traffic from County Line all the way over the street. And I know it's gonna take me 10 to 15 minutes to get there. And I start freaking out. I start having these feelings like I've never had. Like, I just wanted to run. I just wanted to run, man. I wanted to get out of my car and I wanted to run. And I didn't know where I wanted to run to, and I had no idea what I was running from, but I wanted to run. I didn't want to be in my own skin, is how I would say that now. So I finally get to the bar, I'm freaking out. Cindy, at that bar, 2 shots of tequila to start it off. So I sit down, I get the 2 shots of tequila in me, what happens? It goes away. Well, the next day I decide to, I wake up, you know, I go to work and I start feeling that feeling again in the morning. And I'm like, maybe I should go have a couple of drinks at lunch. So at that day, I add drinking to my lunch routine. Okay, now I'm a full-blown alcoholic by this point. And if you know an alcoholic who drinks at lunch, lunchtime drinking is the same as happy hour drinking, okay? Two cocktail minimum. I'm just getting warmed up. That's what I used to say. Shots, alcohol, it was horrible. And this went on for years and years and years. When I was in college, I got in my first hit and run accident. ended up with a $250 fine, no points on my license in Arizona. You know, I got a week after that panic attack while I was going to the General Davis Inn. 3 days after that, I turned 21. A week after that, I got my first of what was 4 DUIs. Okay, jail, all that stuff. 4 DUIs. I didn't have a problem drinking. They were all bad luck. It had to be. Because see, I was under the influence every time I was behind the wheel from the age of 14 when I used to steal my mom's car on Wednesday night while she was at choir practice. I was drunk every single day from the age of 17 on when I was behind the wheel of a car. I never got in an accident. Never had anything bad happen in the vehicle. They were all a little questionable. A couple of them almost got thrown out of court. You know, so I thought they were bad luck. So this went on my career. Now, meanwhile, my career is taking off, and that's how I'm guiding my life. Like when I was 20, one of the difficulties I had when I was really young was I was really successful and I made a lot of money. And none of my friends made any of them near the money, whether they were 10 years in their career, 15 years in their career. So I had a lot of friends, but they couldn't do the things I was able to do. You know, go on big trips, fancy trips, travel all over the place, so I never went. Instead, I would just take them out to the bar. You know, and I'd take them out to the bar all the time and had this crew of great friends that used to run around with. You know, so my career took off, and when I turned 29, now I'm still having these anxiety attacks. I'm dealing with this every day. When I'm 22, I'm walking out of work one day, and I'm on my way to the bar, Casa Maria and King of Prussia, and I'm going, I think to myself, man, you know, I just don't feel right until I get a couple of drinks in me every day. That can't be good. I mean, I literally thought that bit can't be good. I went and got in my car and drove to the bar and continued to drink. Like I said, my career expanded. I was with the same company for a long time. I've never been fired for drinking. I've never lost a job over drinking. I was a real rainmaker. I realize today the crap that these CEOs had to put up with. Not my crap. Not the crap, but defending me. All the time he had to spend defending me. Because when I went out to lunch, I was gone for an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 3. And everybody knew I was drinking. But I was by far the top producer. And when you make people a lot of money, they tend to overlook a lot of things. So now I'm 29, I've grown up. Now I gotta tell you, I'm 29, I'm not drinking like I did when I was 22. You know, I'm going to happy hour, but now I'm leaving at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I'm not drinking 2/5 of rum every night at the bar and shots and going crazy. You know, I've grown up. So I can't be an alcoholic, because you know, alcoholics get worse, never better. You know, but I'm drinking less. So I'm using that as a tool too. Now my career, I end up getting a job offer out in California. And I moved to Redondo Beach. And I'm operations guy for the 3rd largest company in my industry before I was 30. And you know, it was a big deal. I had arrived. I really did. I felt I arrived. My boss lived in Malibu next to Goldie Hawn and all those movie stars. We partied up at his house all the time. And you know, I'm living 2 blocks from the beach in LA. It sucked. I did not like the people. I hated the job even more. I was getting paid gobs and gobs of money, and I walked away from that job 2 years later. But while I was there, now in this job, like, people are gonna, you know, be calling me up, newspapers and local publications for the semiconductor industry. They're gonna be up calling and asking my opinion about the industry and stuff. And I'm like, I need to grow up. You know, it's time for me to grow up. I'm 29 years old. I'm engaged. I moved a girl out to LA I proposed to her so she would move to LA with me. I didn't know whether I was going to marry her or not, but she didn't know that. Don't tell her. So I get out there, and so I decide to grow up. I'm going to quit drinking at lunch and cut my hair, because I had long hair, like I do now. You know, and I'll cut my hair. And that was like a big deal to me. Well, what happens when I cut out lunch drinking? Withdrawal, anxiety attacks. Now I'm running this $500 million company, operations guy for a $500 million company, and I'm pulling into the parking lot in the morning with these huge glass windows where everybody could see me pulling in the parking lot. And I'm pulling in the parking space, and I'm so wound up from anxiety, I'm freaking out. I have to back out of the car space and drive back home and go lay in bed all day. So at this time, I started seeking psychological help. First guy I go to, I'm not there 3 minutes. He gives me a prescription. I'm like, no, I want therapy. So I call my insurance company up, and they hook me up with a therapist. But this started the medication routine while I'm still drinking. I quit that job after 2 years, came back to Philadelphia, fell in love, broke up with the girl, been with for 7 years, and then I met this woman and I fell in love. Actually, I met her. We were out one night drinking and I saw her at the bar. I thought she was looking at me, so I got up and started talking to her. Turned out she was looking through me at the shrimp behind me. And she was remembering how she dropped the lid of the chafing dish in the bar and it fell on the floor and everybody was looking at her. That's what she was thinking. But anyway, I was trying to hire this woman. I was running a mail order catalog company at this point, and she was a perfect hire for the call center. You know, a mother who's coming back to work, college degree, all that stuff. Well, I'm buying her and her friend drinks all night. We're having a good time. At one point, I excused myself to go to the bathroom, and she says she has to go too. So I said, okay. Well, the gentleman I am, when we get to the bathroom stairs, this is an old railroad station in Paoli. So the stairs are like this, real narrow, cement concrete floor on the bottom. She goes to go down the stairs. She turns around to say something to me, and when she turns back around, takes a header down the stairs, bouncing off the walls, off the floor, hits the pavement, bam, face first. So you can imagine, I'm freaking out. I run down there, a woman gets out of the bathroom, she gets hauled off on a stretcher. And I don't see this woman for a year, but I see her friend, and I'm asking her friend all the time, how's Beth doing? Is she okay? How's she doing? How's she doing? And I'm really interested in this woman now, you know. She walks into a bar a year later, I see her. In the middle of a sentence with me and my buddies, I drop what I'm saying, and I beeline it over to her. And I'm like, hi, do you remember me? And her friend says, yeah, this is that jerk who's always asking about you. And she goes, yeah, I remember you. And I look at her and I go, kiss me. Kiss me right now. She's like, what? I'm like, I've been waiting a year for this. You got to kiss me right now. And she did. Now, I didn't know that she was a full-blown alcoholic like me. I knew she liked to drink. But I can tell you a month later, we moved in together. 2 months later, we got engaged. Now, for me, I met this woman. She was beautiful. She was intelligent. She was funny. Her life was a mess. My life was good. I could support a family. See, everything I ever did in my life was to have a house, a white picket fence, 2.5 children, and a dog. That was my dream. I wanted to be a father. I wanted to have a family. That's why I had a career, so I could support a family and give them a better life than I had. And I met this woman, and she's beautiful, and she's funny, she's intelligent. She's got a daughter, and she owns a house. You know, so I have to tell you, in all honesty, when I look back, there had to be a thing there that I was going, oh, this is the problem. See, I have everything I've ever dreamed of in my life except the family. Now I got the family, that everything should be good, right? So I move in a month after, 2 months later we're engaged, 3 months later we're married. This is in March of 2000. 3 months after that, we walk into our first AA meeting. Because see, what had finally gotten me to the point, see, 4 DUIs wasn't unmanageable. Blackouts, not unmanageable. Broken bones, not unmanageable. None of that was unmanageable. I lost my phone, 2 pairs of glasses, the keys to my car, and something else, all in one night, in a complete blackout. It turned out the keys were sitting at my feet outside the door when the maintenance guy came to let me in the apartment. I'm like, yeah, I don't have my keys, man. Thanks for coming to let me in. He squats down and he goes, you mean these? And he holds the keys up in front of my face. I'm like, yeah, thanks. You know, I mean, it was horrible how I drank. And the police were at our house a lot. They used to sit outside our house with my wife and I, waiting for one of us to leave and arrest us for DUI. You know, they had been there before because her prior boyfriend, she had a real great list of men. The SWAT team had been there and had to raid the house with dogs and everything to go in and get one of these guys out of there. You know, so the neighbors were familiar with it. Well, what had happened was I got married, and there was a Friday. I went out to lunch and I ran into a buddy of mine at the bar, and we started drinking. Well, next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we took a drive down to the city. We were hanging out down there for a little while. Then we went back to his place, and I hung out there till 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm newly married. I got a stepdaughter, which, by the way, before I asked this woman to marry me, I knew I had to make a commitment to this daughter, too. With all these men in and out of her mom's life, I had that growing up. Not good. So I made a commitment to this young girl, too, to be a father to her, not to just be married to her mother. And I'm coming home that morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning, and like, what am I going to tell my wife? I mean, she knows I drink, she knows I party, she knows all that, but this is crazy. And I realized at that moment that I would never be able to have my dream. I would never be able to be the father that I always wanted to be to this young girl, and I would never be able to be the husband that I wanted to be to my newlywed wife if I was drinking. Single man's game, that's it. You can't do this. You're never going to be able to do the two. And I knew that, because for years and years, I knew my life was a mess. I wouldn't say I was powerless over alcohol, but I had a pretty good idea I couldn't quit drinking, you know? Well, at this point, I decided I needed to quit drinking. So I told my wife, we had talked about it, and we talked about AA a little bit. I didn't know a lot about AA. I knew that, one thing I knew is they said one's too many and 1,000's not enough. You know, and that kind of rang true for me all the years. I was like, yeah, because I never had an off switch. I always drank too much. Always. Even when I was drinking less and less, I was still too much because I couldn't handle the alcohol anymore. It didn't matter how often I drank, nor how much I consumed. I woke up the next day, I felt the same, horrible. So come June 1st, my therapist actually suggested I go to AA. So on June 1st of 2000, my newlywed wife and I walk into the Malvern Clubhouse at the 5:30 happy hour group. Happy hour works good for me. I thought, oh, that's a good meeting to go to, you know, because I used to drink a lot. I did my best drinking at 5:30, you know, except my airport drinking. Airport drinking, I did a lot of that. And just so you know, airport drinking, I traveled a lot. Sometimes I was at the airport to catch a flight at 8 o'clock. So I'm there at 5. So I'm drinking at 5:30 in the morning. Not morning drinking. See, drinking in the morning is what alcoholics do. I was airport drinking. It's different. These are the lies I told myself. Vacation, lying by the pool at 7 a.m. with a screwdriver. Not morning drinking, vacation drinking. You know, these are the lies I would tell myself constantly. So I go to AA, and I'm a good student. I know how to study. Everything I've learned in my career, it's all self-taught, so I know how to get into something. You go in and you find the people that are the best at it, you do what they say. You repeat the process that they do, and you'll get what they got. It's that simple. Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, all the greatest sales motivation speakers in the world tell you this. So I go to the meeting, my first meeting, what do? I get a sponsor, a temporary sponsor. I get a big book. I get a phone number. I'm told to call every day. I'm sent home to read the doctor's opinion. Now, he's my temporary sponsor because he's moving down the shore for the summer in 30 days, but he's going to hook me up with somebody else. So I get 30 days. Like, look, man, you go to AA, you come into AA, and you finally go, and you're finally going to do, well, you go to rehab, you go to AA, whatever, you finally do something about your drinking. Man, it's like deciding to go to the gym. Like, I got to go to the gym. I got to start working out. I got to start exercising. And then that Monday morning comes, and I actually get up, and I put on my workout outfit, and I walk out the front door at 4 o'clock, and I close the door to the house behind me. Man, I'm feeling so good. I'm like, yeah, you know I'm already feeling good. I haven't even lifted up a weight or gotten to the gym yet. But I'm so excited. Why? Because I'm finally doing something I knew I should have been doing for a long time. But what happens with the people at the gym? They go to the gym, and that newness wears off. And they stop going. Same things happen to alcoholics in AA, and it happened to me. I got 30 days and I drank. My wife didn't drink. I raised my hand every time. I relapsed probably four times in the first 6 months, 5 months. And this one guy saw me doing it. And I got 31 days. I had 30 days for like the third time or fourth time. And he came up to me after the meeting. His name was Kevin White. And I use his full name only because that's how he introduces himself at meetings. And he said, you want to come with me and Matt? Matt was a buddy of mine that he was sponsoring. He said, come over to Matt. We'll do some big book work. I'm like, big book work? I've been reading the 12 and 12. And the doctor's opinion is all I've read. You know, of course, I read everything, but it's not what my sponsors are telling me to do. I'm being told to stay away from these big book thumpers. They're crazy. You know, so I'm like, okay. So we go over to Matt's house. We sit at the kitchen table, and over the course of 3 hours, we go through the first few chapters. We get up to we agnostics, and he's asking me these questions, and we're talking the entire time. And I gotta tell you, this is all starting to make sense. I mean, real sense. Like, I see stuff in the book that, like, this is all logic, it all ties in, and then we get to the third step. You know, next thing you know, I'm out in the living room, and I'm down on my knees, and we're saying the third step prayer, and he goes, okay, we've completed the third step. Now he says, next, because it says in the book, it tells us when to do the fourth step. It says next, which means when we get up off our knees. There's no argument of time frame. It says it clearly. And he shows me that. So he shows me how to do the fourth step. He takes me through the resentments, the fears, and the harms. And I'm seeing, I mean, that's where in the big book, that's where you really get into the instructions. They're hidden right there in the basic text. It's crazy, man, but you gotta have somebody show you. Because it's like Shakespeare, to me. Like Lady Macbeth, man, she slaughtered some dudes with a knife, and she got all this blood on her. I think she killed Macduff, maybe, I don't know. But she stabbed him, and she was washing her hands at the sink. And she stood at the sink for a long, long time and washed her hands. And my teacher asked me, do you know why she stood at the sink and washed her hands for so long? Yeah, because she was a bloody mess. She just gashed some guy with a knife. And she says, no. It's a representation of her trying to wash the guilt away of what she had done. And I'm like, whoa, how am I supposed to know that? Big Book's the same way. So Kevin takes me through. I'm so excited. I got my fourth step. I go home and sit with my wife for 2 hours and take her through all my notes and take her through the books. I'm like, this is great. I'm so excited. I go to my home group the next day. And at the beginning of the meeting, does anybody feel like drinking? Is anybody bothering you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like an alcoholic. I'm really scared. I'm on my fourth step. I don't even know if the person chaired the meeting and brought up a topic, but the entire meeting pretty much turned around to what an idiot that guy Mike is, thinking he could do a fourth step at 30 days after just relapsing a bunch of times. And I'm like, uh-oh. I mean, I got a lot of grief. I'm freaking out. But man, he showed me the directions. I'm starting a new business. One of the gifts of sobriety, I called an old boss of mine that I built his company and drank every day. And I called him up, asked him for a job. He wanted to start a company with me. So we're starting a business together. And I got to fly to Europe for a couple of weeks with 35 days sober, go to a business trade show, go schmooze all these vendors and OEMs that are going to be clients of ours. So I get on a plane and I fly over to Europe. Now, everybody told me I was going to drink if I tried to do a fourth step. You try to do it too soon, you're going to get drunk. That's what everybody's telling me. So I go over, I bring my fourth step stuff, man. I bring my book, I got my notebook out. I'm going to do this. I know those people at the home group said I'm crazy, but this made sense. But I get to Europe, I don't write my fourth step. And see, it says in the literature, although the decision we made was a vital and crucial step, it will have no lasting effect unless at once, another time reference of when to do the fourth step. We followed it up with a house cleaning. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. So next and at once are the two time references. My sponsees can do it any time in between that. So I end up drunk 4 days into the trip. I'm blacked out for 5 days. I come out of the blackout, call my wife, tell her I drank. I get through the trip, I get home. One of these situations, I wanted to go see my newlywed wife. I was away for the first time ever. We missed Thanksgiving together, and I want to go see her. And my sponsor calls me, a new sponsor, because the other one's fired me because I drank, and tells me I got to go to a sweat lodge. And I realized sometimes you got to make decisions that you don't want to do to stay sober. So I went to this sweat lodge, and it was pretty cool and it was exciting. But I went to meetings for 6.5 years. I was at meetings every single day. I relapsed 30, 40, 50, 60 times. I was at a meeting every day anyway. I raised my hand every time I drank. Because you guys, here was the only place I could ever get more than 2 days. Because really, what was happening is, see, I had sponsors, and what they were doing is they were taking me through their program. I'll tell you this, my program got me here. Okay? And look at it, and I'm pretty sure your programs are how you guys got here. We all have different paths to get here, but we're all here. So 6.5 years, bunch of sponsors. I'm on this AA waltz. After 6.5 years, losing my marriage, lost my house, burning the business to the ground. It was still going pretty well at that time. We were a pretty good company, and I'm like, this is a waste. I can't stay sober. I'm a loser. Like, I'm going to this 12-step program, 6.5 years. I've never tried anything so hard in my entire life and never been such a failure. Because, see, I heard it all the time, and I still hear it today. The way you work the first step perfectly is by not picking up a drink. And I kept drinking. So obviously, I couldn't even get the first step down. So I was that guy who was never going to get it. So I consciously made a decision to leave AA. I loved AA. I loved my friends. When my wife and I split up, I was surrounded by people in recovery. We went out every Saturday night. Out of the 20 of us, 3 stayed sober. And I just kept, so I left AA and I said, knowing what I know, I'm going to have to do the best I can. You know, and that first week, man, that first week out drinking, you know, it wasn't like I never stopped drinking. It took me a week to get up to that. But within a week, I was drinking like I had never stopped. Like I never stopped for those 6.5 years. And within a year or two, I'm curled up in the ball in the fetal position in my bed. I've broken up with my partner because I can do a better job. Now, what happened at the end there, I did have 2 years where I didn't drink before I left for 5 years. My stepdaughter had to come live with me. I took her in for 2 years. And I wasn't drinking when I had her, and everybody in AA was telling me how great I was doing. And I thought I was doing great. I'm not drinking. I got this great business going. Well, my businesses were always going great, but I'm not drinking, so I'm convinced I'm doing well. The truth was, she went off to college. 5 days after she left, I picked up a drink. And I didn't stop for 5 years. I ended up burning that business to the ground, going out on my own, burning that business to the ground, going through $100,000 of my mother's investment money, tons of my own money, because I'm drinking at the bar every day. I got this beautiful iPhone now. These iPhones, man, they have all my Outlook contacts, Excel, all of my Word. I could sit at the bar and do everything. So I never worked from home. I went back on the medication, started seeing a psychiatrist again. At one point was on 7 medications. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, panic disorder, and anxiety disorder. I was drinking the whole time I was on the medication. It said burn the business to the ground, so the insurance got canceled. Then I couldn't pay for it out of pocket. Then I had to cancel the psychiatrist and get off the meds. So I told the psychiatrist, you gotta wean me off all this stuff. I don't have the money for it. So he weans me off all the meds 2 months after that. I mean, I'm such a mess. I don't shower. Okay, I don't change my sheets in my bed. I wear the same clothes every day. I have a shower 6 feet away and I don't use it. The only reason I can get out of bed is to go to the market to get food for my cats and go to the bar. And the meds are gone 2 months, and I'm standing in my living room and I can picture it. I can go to that moment. And I'm like, man, this is I don't feel any different. I don't feel any different than I did when I was on the meds. And this voice in my head goes, it's the alcohol, you idiot. I mean, just like that, I'm like, whoa. Well, if you're an alcoholic like me, where AA doesn't work and you were a complete failure, it's really bad. You go to like the darkest point you've ever been in your entire life. And in that very same moment, this voice said, what about that guy Kevin White? What he showed you? Well, this is 2011. There's an internet now. So I jump on the internet and I start doing all this research on the history of AA. And it turns out what Kevin White told me was absolutely true. That's probably the most important thing I can share with you tonight, other than how wonderful my life is today. I have my daughter, my grandkids are back. I have a grandson that's 16 months old who was with me every day for the first 15 months while my daughter went back to work. I never got to change diapers. I never played dad. I never was a father. I got to have all that experience because my God is an awesome God. And my God has given me everything I've ever dreamed of in my life. It just doesn't look like the dream. So I decide I'm going back to AA and I'm hunting down Kevin. Because to be honest with you, did you know they took people through the steps in 2 days? They had you out making your amends the next day. The recovery rates in the big book, 50 to 75%. 50% stayed sober after that. Those who really tried, that means they did the steps. If you're not doing the steps, you're not trying at all. And all these things he told me were true. So I get into the history, I walk into a meeting, and I'm gonna tell you what I learned. I get to that meeting, and the first day I get my hand up. I've been out drinking for 5 years. I have no car, I have no license, I have no job. I need help, and I put my hand down. That's it. I got a list of 40 numbers after that meeting, and not a single person came up to me after that meeting. 80 people in the room, not a single one came up to me after the room, except one man who came up to me and said, here's my number. You call me by tomorrow at 9 a.m. and I'll pick you up and make sure you get me here. And that guy is one of those many angels in my recovery that saved my life. Because while I was drinking, I popped into a meeting here and there, but I never went to 2 in a row. And it was that second one that knew I was back. But what I learned in this meeting, the next day, now this is God working in my life. The next day we're reading A Vision for You. My favorite story, it's about this guy, Jimmy Burrow. Kevin told me all about him. He brought AA to Philadelphia. You know, he's told me about Abby Thatcher. He told me about all these guys, you know. And I'm sitting in the meeting and this guy, he introduces himself as Shaky Mike. he shares, and he's sharing about the story Vision for You, and he goes into Jimmy Burrow, and he mentions Ebby Thatcher, and he starts sharing about all this history, and I'm like, whoa, I'm immediately targeting this guy. Like, wow. And then he said he took people through the steps in prison. And I'm like, okay, nothing in my 5th step's going to surprise him. So I started eyeballing him as my sponsor, because he was sitting right in the same room in King of Prussia at the meeting every day. It took me 3 weeks. 3 weeks to get the nerve up to ask him. And I had to tell on myself at the group saying, look, I don't have a sponsor, it's Friday. You come up to me on Monday, you ask me who my sponsor is, I'll be able to give you an answer. And I called him that day and I asked him to be my temporary sponsor, and he said, no. Temporary sponsorship is for temporary sobriety. I hadn't heard that. I'm like, okay, will you be my sponsor? And he's like, yes. We met at the meeting on Monday. He talked to me for 2 days. Thursday, we go to the Upper Marion Library. We go into a meeting room. He's got somebody else with him, another sponsee, who couldn't answer the qualifying questions. Do you have a problem? Do you have a drinking problem? Do you want to do something about it? What are you willing to do? It's got to be yes, yes, and whatever it takes. And if they can't answer those questions, I can't help you. You're not ready. Those are the qualifying questions. Not if you keep drinking or not. So he immediately turns to me. We go through the first 3 steps. And he sends me home to do my 4th step. Because see, what I've learned, and I don't like to call it lies because that's kind of evil. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but I know sometimes I do. And it's not intentional, but I can't change the facts that they are. The first step is the only step we can work with absolute perfection. We say it all the time. Why? Because one of our founders wrote it in the 7th step. And what people say is, you work the first step perfectly by not picking up a drink. Well, see, if you cannot drink and go to meetings, you don't have the same problem as me. If you cannot pick up a drink under any and all circumstances and stay sober, you don't have the same problem as me. I need a power greater than myself. I'm not a heavy drinker. I'm not a problem drinker. Heavy drinker might drink a freaking handle of vodka every day, might need to go to detox, because he might die if he quits. But when he gets out, he stays stopped. Maybe his job got threatened, he's got liver problems, but something in his life, he can just stop. He's not like me. So see, what I learned, the first step is, if an alcoholic can do it perfectly, it means we have to be able to do it sober or drunk. Well, I can tell you what I can do sober or drunk. I can sit in that chair at a meeting, knowing that my life is unmanageable and that I need to be here. Because see, why did I just look at quitting drinking? It wasn't because I was getting away with it. When I was getting away with it, I would have never thought about stopping it. It was the mere unmanageability in my life that made me even consider to stop drinking. Then when I went to stop drinking, what happened? I found out I couldn't on my own. I was helpless. Now in the dictionary, according to Webster, Roget, all these word people, helpless and powerless are synonymous. So how did I know that I had the first step down? That first day I walked into my first meeting. Because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. I was helpless. So I was seeking help. So not only that I knew I was helpless, but you could tell I wanted to get better because I was sitting in one of these uncomfortable chairs, getting my hand up saying I was an alcoholic. And that's how I worked the first step perfectly every single day to this day. See, those 6.5 years, I had the first step down. They were telling me, no, you gotta drink, you can't drink. In the second step, they told me I had to come up with a God. You gotta believe in a God. No, it's not what it says. It says I have to be willing to believe in something greater than myself. The simple question is to anybody, are you the most powerful thing in the world? Every person I ask that says no. And all right, let's go through the rest of the steps and find out what is. Simple. Third step, this is where you give your life to God. I was told that. And why I had to keep going back to the first, I would drink, get to 3, never get to 4, end up drinking, go back to 1, because one of the biggest lies in AA is if you drink, you start over. Where'd that come from? Dr. Bob was blackout drunk in Atlantic City at a convention, doesn't even know how he got home to Akron. 3 days later, he's out making amends after having 2 drinks that morning. And that was the day of his last drink. He didn't start over. Nowhere does it say we start over. Except if you're somebody that says, you gotta work the first step perfectly by not drinking. If you're powerless, just admitting it's not gonna give you the strength. It might give you that first couple of weeks, like going to the gym, but it's no lasting sobriety. And in the third step where I kept punching my business partner in the face and getting in fights with my wife, and my daughter was running away, they say, you keep taking your will back. You can't do the 4th step. You gotta give your will to God before you do your 4th step. No, what it says is I made a decision. I made a decision to turn my will and life over to the care of God. That's it. Nothing more. I made a decision to come to this meeting tonight to speak. Thank you, by the way, Ron, very much for asking me to come. It's an honor and a pleasure to speak here. But it didn't get me here. I didn't pop in here like Jeannie. I had to get up, I had to suit up, I had to get in my car, I had to get on the turnpike, start my car, get in it, drive all the way up here, stop and get coffee on the way, smoke a cigarette on the way, listen to the right music, meditate, park in the parking lot, get out, walk across the door and come here. What is that? Those are all the actions I had to take in order to make the decision come true. And the truth is, it's the same with the third step. It's a decision to turn my will in life. All right, I'm ready to do it. Now how? It says in the book, this is the how and the why. And that's how we get to our fourth step. I take people through the first 3 steps that simply in 10 minutes in parking lots after meetings. And I watch their life change because they get to the fourth step. You know, everybody says it's a suggested program, and yes, it says that, but there's 96 musts in the big book in the first 164 pages. It never says you must, I must. It says the alcoholic must if he wishes to stay sober. I'm going to end with this. If you're waiting for the miracle, I can tell you right now, the fact that I stand up here before you sober for today, let alone 13 years, is not a miracle. I know, it's not a miracle. AA, miraculous program. Bill and Bob, miracle they came up with this stuff. But if I go home tonight and I decide to make some brownies from Betty Crocker, I get my cookbook out. And I go through and I follow the directions and I mix all this stuff in the bowl and then I grease the pan and I stick it in the oven for 20 minutes. And at the end, I pull it out and I got brownies. Is that a miracle? No. I followed the instructions and I got what they promised. Brownies. Same with the book. If we follow the clear-cut directions, don't try to do it our way or some other ego-filled, egomaniac's way of doing it. Follow the directions in the book. If you do that and you get what they promised, like I did, there's no miracle. I did what they said, I got what they got. They're called the promises. They're not the probabilities. If you hadn't gotten into the steps, I would tell you, man, I got more in those 6 weeks by going through the steps and starting to make amends at 6 weeks than I got in all 6.5 years sitting in one of those chairs holding on. So I hope you find your way like I have, because my God is an awesome God. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian. I'm an alcoholic. First and foremost, I want to thank Mike for coming out here, delivering an incredible message of hope and recovery to our group here. A couple quick announcements and we'll wrap up the meeting. As Nick mentioned, we got food and fellowship every week here at 8 o'clock. Feel free to show up early. If you want to get involved with this group, get into service. We always appreciate it, always looking for people to take up service positions. If you want to help out with some service after the meeting, we could use help putting away the chairs. But most importantly, if you are new or if you're struggling, hang out with us. There'll be a meeting after the meeting. There'll be a whole group of us hanging out here. We'd love to talk with you, get you some numbers, some meetings to go to. It is customary for us to thank our speakers as they come here on their own time and expense. So usually we do form a line in the front here, and we thank our speakers personally. Thanks to everybody for helping out with the meeting tonight. Thanks to our greeters, our readers, and let's thank our speaker, Mike, one more time. If you do care to join us, we have a beautiful way of closing. We're going to circle up and do the Lord's Prayer. We'll close down the meeting, as always, with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father.
How you doing?
you.